Mm.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Art Alliance for Contemporary Glass Fired Up series. Our guest this month is Nancy Callan, and we are so excited to have her on the program, as well as Katie Buckingham, curator from the Museum of Glass. So before we get started, I wanted to go ahead and just mention a few things about AACG. If everyone in the audience can please make sure you're muted, I would appreciate that. AACG has a really exciting trip coming up to Europe. If you haven't heard about it and are interested in joining us, please visit aacgglass.org. And if you are new to our programming, we have these Zoom programs every week. The first Friday of each month is always free, and the rest of the month is exclusive for members only. So if you enjoy the program today and would like to see more, please visit aacgglass.org and check out our membership page. All right, so now I would like to get going with our program. I'm so excited for this exhibition. It is an AACG grant recipient. We have Nancy Callan, and her exhibition is Nancy Callan Forces at Play at the Museum of Glass. We also have two individuals with us today, Anne and John Oppenheimer, who were kind enough to sponsor this program. They've known Nancy Callan for a long time, have a number of her sculptures in their collection, and if you can see them, you might see one of their panel pieces. They have 4 panels of Nancy above them that are absolutely stunning, and we're just so grateful for their support and sponsorship today. So thank you, Anne and John. All right, as we move forward, if anyone has any questions in the program today, please put them in the chat. We will be getting to them periodically throughout the program. And now I would like to go ahead and turn things over to Katie Buckingham and Nancy Callan. Thank you so much for being with us.
You ready, Nancy?
Ready. Here we go.
I am thrilled. I make this joke a lot, so I'm going to switch it up a little bit, but really, sincerely, it's like opening for the Rolling Stones or Beyonce to be sitting here with Nancy. One of the true privileges of my job is that I get to do art history in real time with the real artists. So this is a thrill on behalf of all of us at MOGS. And I'm a millennial, but I'm a terrible millennial. So please go graciously as I handle our PowerPoint today. Nancy, do you want to say anything to start us off, or shall I give a little background and then we'll get going?
I do. I just want to thank everybody for joining us, and also just bear with me because I always get a little nervous at the beginning, and then my voice will start shaking. But I'm gonna, try to work through that. I want to just say a few thank yous as well. I want to thank my partner Julia Ricketts, who really had such a vision too with this show, and she worked beautifully with Katie and I in organizing and planning everything out. So, and also just for her patience with this whole endeavor. And I also want to thank Katie for doing such a great job and being such an amazing supporter of the show. And Debbie Links, the director of the museum. Also, we worked really closely with Rebecca Engelhardt and Lynette Martin for the show. And I want to thank Anne and John, especially for supporting this particular part of the video and going through this. It's a great opportunity to have the AACG do events like this, and a lot of people wouldn't be able to get out and see my show, but we can see it virtually, which is amazing. And I just want to thank my team and the museum team too for really all the support throughout the years.
Yeah, and while we're on the subject of thank yous, I mean, I know I speak from everybody here in Tacoma and at the museum when we really are honored to host this exhibition. For all of you that haven't had a chance to visit us here in Tacoma, Museum of Glass is a unique experience for visitors because we have a gallery and exhibition space and a working hot shop. So we always have glassblowing demonstrations going when we're open to the public, and we host between 35 and 45 visiting artist residencies a year, which gives us the opportunity to show our visitors more about the creative artistic process, but also helps us help artists try new things, experiment, and push the boundaries. And Nancy has been a really important part of that story since we opened. We opened in 2002, and since then, Nancy has been here over 20 times. 10
Wow.
for residencies in her own right, and 10 as a collaborator with other artists and as a member of Lino Tagliapietra's team. So to have this exhibition, which is Nancy's story, but is also in a way our story, has been really meaningful for us at the museum. So we're here not as a retrospective of Nancy's work. It's definitely a midpoint, a career survey so far, and a look forward. So we're going to get going here. I know you guys aren't here to talk to me. You're here to hear from Nancy. So what we're going to do is we're going to experience the exhibition as you would as a visitor through the gallery. So the show itself unfolds in 3 thematic sections, and we're going to talk about each of those sections. There's a short video walkthrough that will start each section, and then Nancy selected a few pieces to go forth and talk about. Nancy herself grew up near Boston. She worked as a pizza maker, band roadie, and graphic designer before attending Massachusetts College of Art and Design, where she received her BFA in 1996. And I know that the first section, Pop Art and Graphics, is autobiographical, so I'm not going to dive too deeply into Nancy's history since the work does that so well. But she's been a really important part of our community in the Northwest here since moving to Seattle in 1996 to join Lino Tagliapietra's team. So, Nancy, the way that your story has intersected so closely with ours here in Tacoma is really special and is an important part of Forces at Play. And the exhibition itself is an experience. Seeing glass through the eyes of Nancy Callan creates this really interesting inflection point where we have the history of the traditional Venetian techniques that Nancy learned from Lino, but also her contemporary voice looking at the world around her and using those techniques to create a language to express her thoughts and feelings on issues of identity, science, nature, fashion, and all of those things we're going to talk about today. The show is vibrant and playful and powerful, and we're so excited to have you here to show you Forces at Play. So to get us started, we're going to enter the gallery, and the first section is pop art and graphics. Nancy uses references to pop culture to tell her own story and to connect with all of us as visitors. And this section showcases her wide-ranging history and visual culture inspired from everything from troll dolls to Marvel and DC Comics. All of the visual references in this section speak both to Nancy herself, her identity, her journey as a woman in a male-dominated art form, and her infectious sense of humor. But they also showcase the incredible mastery of the medium and the techniques in glass. So without further ado, Nancy, I'll let you take it from here, but we'll jump right into the gallery.
Wow, Katie, that was a really nice intro. Thank you so much. And yeah, so we're going to take a little peek here at the first section. And I really wanted to set up the mood and the tone and thank our beautiful sponsors for everything. I created this wallpaper that you're seeing here, and it's a backdrop to the snowman. And on the wallpaper are images of things that I collect and a lot of like childhood toys. And I have them scattered all around my studio. And I think it kind of reminds me to be playful. And that's a really big theme in the beginning of this show is just work that's really playful. And I don't think we do it enough as adults. So I like to invoke my inner child when I'm designing some of these pieces. Here we see some bee butts on the wall and some older tops from my top series. And again, like referencing toys and just things that we like to play with. And Katie mentioned that I was a graphic designer. In these pieces, these are some older works too, which I'm going to talk a little bit more about some of these works individually. And these are cameo carvings, and you can really see my love for graphics in these works. Beefcake Boys. And these were made in 2003, 2002, 2003. And I also did some smaller medicine bottles that also have like little graphic designs on them that I'll talk about in a little bit too. So the way we set up the show is just, it's just I kind of wanted to like let the viewer into my thought process. And I'm very visual. And so I've got like the wallpaper to kind of just give people an idea of things that I look at when I'm making my work. And these are stingers, and I'm going to talk about those as well. So now I'm going to show you some stills of selected pieces. So as you're entering into the gallery, I wanted to like really set the tone of pop art. I look to pop art a lot for inspiration, and artists like Keith Haring, who was a really big hero for me. He's a painter in the 80s, and he was an outwardly gay man, and that was important to me to like see how he coped with being out at the time. And I really loved his like use of graphics to like tell a story, a societal story or narrative. And so yeah, I look a lot to other artists, and I feel like I kind of have a conversation with them. So this piece is called Road Trip with Keith. And again, I'm setting up a little journey for us to go on this little road trip. So now I'm going to take you to the Pinup Girls and the Beefcake Boys. And again, these are older works. And when I saw them again for the first time, it really like brought back my inspiration for these pieces, which was my first trip to Murano and visiting Lino. So I worked with Lino Tagliapietra for 19 years. And oh, by the way, he said to say hello to everybody. I talked to him on the phone this morning. He said, "Oh, Nancy, tell everybody I miss them very much." So hello from Lino. So when I was visiting Lino and Murano, I was walking around all the different shops. He would take me into these amazing factories. And I think the thing that really hit me the most was that there were no women in the hot shops. And like in America, there's quite a few women that were blowing glass at the time, but on Murano there were no women. And the only women that I saw were these pinup girls that were on the heat shields of the glass blowers, near the glass blowers benches. So when I got back from Murano, I started this series, and they're kind of tongue in cheek. And then I made the boys because, equal opportunity. And the medicine bottles kind of speak to obsessions. Like the pinup boys speak to like our obsession with body. And at the time I was also pretty newly sober. So I was like working out some sobriety issues in these pieces, and just, I don't know, they're just like thoughts that I would have. And it was a fun way to kind of use my skills in graphic design and bring them onto glass. And they're cameo carvings, so I would use a diamond bit to carve through the layers of color and then add them to these bottles hot and then blow them out. So they really they move a little bit, and they're just really fun for me to make. So in 2008, I was invited to the museum for the first time to do a residency. And I don't know if you all know what a residency is, but it's a program that is awarded to different artists, and they're invited to go work in the hot shop. And I had been to help Lino with some residencies and some other folks, but this was my first residency, and it was my first opportunity to work with this incredible team. And you're in this like giant arena, and there's like it's just a huge facility. And I just thought, wow, how can I like engage all the benches and get everybody working together and make it really fun? And I thought back to my childhood and I thought one of my favorite things to do with the kids around the neighborhood was to make a snowman. And so I thought, oh, how funny it would be to make a large scale snowman in the hot shop and get all the benches going. And it's really quite a feat. And in this particular one, it's fun, but it's also really technically challenging. This one's called Blueprint for a Snowman. And for me, it's really important to get the proportions all right and the graphics. And surprisingly enough, the nose was the hardest part to make on this one. And we put these together all hot. Want to go to the next one, Katie?
You.
Thanks. So here you can see the team working on the snowmen, and they're so large and heavy, and it's just, it's an amazing like opportunity to work with such incredible people. And the thing is, like, the audience gets so invested in it too. Like, they'll sit there for like 3 hours and watch me make this thing. It's really fun. And I think it was a really smart choice to do because the audience loved it so much. The museum would invite me back to do residencies so that I would do these snowmen. So it's really fun for me and the team to make them. And for this section, I wanted to revisit a series called Stingers. And these are based on superheroes' costumes. They're really, again, really large to make. So making them at the Museum of Glass is like the perfect venue for creating such large works. So I invite my team and we work with the museum team and we're able to like make these really large scale pieces. The designs are based on colors and the bold graphics of superheroes and villains. So for this show, I wanted to do 3 women, and I chose Kitty Pryde, who's a little bit more obscure. She is from the X-Men, and I just love the way she came out. And then I did Catwoman. We all know Catwoman, sassy and kitty-like. So the green is for her eyes, and she would wear a black and purple costume. And then I did Mystique, and Mystique is also from the X-Men. She's a shapeshifter. Oh, and I also wanted to mention Kitty Pryde was one of the first gay superheroes. So Kitty Pryde, you can see here we are with the piece on the blowpipe, and you can really see the scale and what it takes to make something of this size and proportion. I'm using an encalmo technique, something that I learned from Lino, and it's the joining of color cups together to make these bold graphics. And we almost lost this piece. There's like a heroic save. I think Katie's going to share a QR code where we like actually pick this piece back up out of an annealer and save the piece, and it lives today. I also want to mention that I put the cones on cold because I want to get a really clean line and get the proportions just right too. Sometimes it's better to glue than to do it hot. On the snowman, I do everything hot, but on these, the cone gets glued on. And oftentimes I'll like take, I don't know, it can take me like 7 cones to get the right one. I'm very particular. Think we're good? Yeah.
Good. Okay, great.
Yeah.
That brings us to once you've gone through pop art and graphics, hopefully you've had a lot of fun.
Does anybody want to ask any
Yeah.
questions in that section? Do you have any questions, Dimitra?
There are no questions in the chat, but just a reminder to everyone as we go along, if you do have questions, just drop them in the chat and we'll get to them in the program. Thank you.
Well, great. So you've gone through pop art and graphics, which gives you a chance to get to know Nancy and appreciate her glassblowing prowess. And the next section you arrive at is called Pattern and Textiles. And this is really where the 2-decade mentorship and friendship with Lino takes off and starts to go in this really incredible direction. This section illustrates how the Venetian canework patterns that Nancy has spent 2 decades mastering really mesh with her love of fashion and textiles. What I think is so captivating about this section is as a costume and textile person myself, the experience of seeing those things in a museum is always really underwhelming because they're either on a mannequin or you're looking at a photo. And so you don't get a sense of how the piece is meant to be worn. But with molten glass, the fluidity of working in that medium allows Nancy to capture the lines and layers of the pattern in fabric while also arresting the movement of the pattern and stopping it in motion. So there's a lot of really unique and beautiful moments in this section that are the merge of that contemporary eye and the background and mentorship that Nancy's had and connection to Murano. So now we'll take you through the gallery, Nancy.
That was so well described, Katie. Thank you. Yeah, so at an early age, I started looking at fashion, and now as a glass blower, I really like to think about the relationship between fabric and textiles and cane, stringers, marini. There's just something incredible when you're blowing glass. And like Katie said, like when you put the pattern on a form and you see how it stretches and moves with the glass. So these are a couple of plaid pieces, some earlier works that I was really interested in making a really tight plaid. And you can see like how it pulls and moves. And I did a series called Winkles, and again, you see the fabrics draped over the form. These are called balaclavas, and they're kind of a nod to Pierre Cardin's 1970s suits with and he often had like a hood that went along with the suit. And this is another winkle, which I'll talk about in a minute. And now we're going to look at a series of wall panels that I wanted to create. I wanted to create a big statement piece in the show in the back of the museum. And this is here I'm having a conversation with the designer Ray Kawakubo. And I'm really exploring so many different cane techniques and patterns. And the thing about the panels are they're just such a great venue for creating different patterns and just seeing them on the wall. Like the section in pop art and graphics, and I wanted to create another like storyboard here on the left. And we're going to just quickly take a look at a couple of palomas, which I will talk about in a minute. But this storyboard on the left is, again, like my inspiration. This is something that I have in my studio, which we blew up to put on the wall. And I like cut out like different images. And there's that Pierre Cardin right there. I cut out different images. There's some Pucci and Sony prints and Bauhaus, Ray Kawakubo, like all of my favorite imagery. I just like have this storyboard in my studio that I just pin things up and get an inspiration from. So it's a really fun thing to look at. And you can see there's like a woman in a yellow dress. I just want to bring attention to that. That was my mom, and it is my mom, and me and my brother. And she was probably my first fashion icon. She always had like really fashionable clothes. And I remember looking at the suit when I was a little kid and thinking she looked like Big Bird. Okay, I think we can. Okay, I want to talk about Palazzo Pucci top. So this is from one of my earlier series, the top series. And here I'm looking at the work of Emilio Pucci. He's a Italian fabric designer, fashion designer, and he's really well known for his scarves and dresses. He is incredible with color. He would put like the most outrageous colors together, and they just somehow would just work together so nicely and so boldly or subtly. And here I'm using like this lime green and pink with purples and grays. And I have this beautiful book of his in my studio, and I often like, just look through that for inspiration of colors. And on this top, it's carved by my friend Ethan Stern, and it's carved with a stone, and it gives it that tactile feeling. And here we are looking at the palomas. So these are probably the most figurative work that I have. And if you noticed, I have a lot of different names for pieces, and it's not easy to name pieces and name different series. So the name for this series came up with by we were thinking of Julia and I come up with the names a lot, and we were thinking of the kind of the head part of the sculpture, but sometimes I think of it like as a bun on the top of your head. And we were looking at Paloma Picasso. She always had that bun on the top of her head. So we would just like randomly call it a Paloma. And then we couldn't think of another name. So we just ended up with Paloma. So on the left is Nikita. And this piece is inspired by Prince. When he passed away a few years ago, I wanted to pay tribute to him, and he loved the color purple. And you can see it's quite musical in the pattern. And I really like that. I think he would like it. And on the right, I have Natalia Paloma, and here I'm looking at a more it's like a plaid pattern, which I'm looking at the distress of the plaid, and I find that really interesting in clothing designs. As you can see, I think I have some distress on right now. Yes, I do. And I love like when the garment is pulled away, when it's frayed, when you can actually see like the textiles, the threads, and yeah. So I wanted to start working with that in some of my pieces too. It's funny, I had a studio visit one day, and this woman brought her little girl, and I have these blow cups that to make a plaid, you have to have a cup, and then I stuff another cup inside. Anyway, I had these like random cups sitting around, and she said, "What's that going to be?" And I said, "Oh, I'm not going to use that because I put one of the canes is wrong." And she just looked at me and she said, "But that's the best part." And I was like, "Oh my God, you were so right. It is the best part." So then I started to really I was so consumed with making the pattern so perfect. And I think it was important for me to do that, to be able to see that I could make it perfect. But then I started just messing it up. I wanted to add things that were not quite right in there. And it's just, I don't know, it's just kind of that simple thing that she said to me just changed things a little bit for how I organize a pattern. And here's Missoni Winkle. This is Missoni is another designer who I look to, and they're really well known for their vibrant colors and their knitwear. And in this piece, you can really see the textile quality, the threads and the lines, and how it moves on this form, the Winkle form. And the name Winkle comes from Rip Van Winkle, sleeping cap. And it's really funny because, what's a winkle? Can be, yeah, can be almost anything. And now we're going to talk about Comme les filles, which was a piece that I designed specifically for the show. Like I said, I wanted to have a real showstopper in the exhibition, or a few of them, and I wanted this to be on the back wall, which is it's a really big wall. This is the largest panel installation I've done to date, and I've done a number of black and white panel installations, and in this one, I wanted to add a color to it. And it's funny, like it's so like intimidating to like just add a simple color to what you're used to doing, what you're used to seeing, and then what color would that be? And I just like I just for some reason I thought pink would be a really good color because it is of the body. It's also has a lot of uh, societal baggage with it. And for me as well, I was always a tomboy. I never wanted to wear pink. I always wanted to look like a boy. I wanted to play boy sports. And so pink was like, I kind of had like this, a little bit of a fear of pink. And so I don't know, I just kind of made myself like embrace the feminine and embrace my own femininity in this piece. And I think it works really well. I also, when organizing the work, I wanted to spread it out. I mostly like go on sort of a grid pattern when I'm organizing my installations, and this is still on a grid pattern, but I wanted to like spread the panels out, and the negative space was important to me too. And I think it's nice to it's kind of a little journey that you take with all these different techniques, and feel like it gives each piece a little bit of room to breathe and for people to really stop and look at them individually as opposed to a big installation. So I'm going to go a little technical on you now and talk about how I make the panels. And on the left, I'm working here with Jen Ellick. She's one of my team members and a really great artist. And I'm creating one of the cylinders. So on the right is this beautiful drawing by Walter Lieberman, and it really explains how I make the panels. So window pane glass was made with this old technique of blowing a clear cylinder and cutting the bottom off and cutting it along the side and putting it in an annealer and opening it flat. So I wanted to like kind of recreate that, but using pattern and color. And so what I do is I think about what kind of pattern I want to have on the wall panel, and I decide the colors, what color the background's going to be. And so the background is this color cup you see in the top left. So on this piece, I'm making a black and white piece with black as the background. So I'm taking the white cane and stuffing it on the inside of the black cup. And then I melt that all in. And I have this like giant blob of just black glass. And I can't see what's happening on the inside. I just have to trust that, it's going to come out like how I think it's going to come out. And so I then, create this really large scale cylinder, as you can see. And then I bring it to my cold worker, Kristen Elliott, who also works at the Museum of Glass, and she is phenomenal. And she cuts the pieces for me in the cold shop using a diamond saw. And then I get the piece back and I put it in my kiln and I lay it on its side and then bring it up slowly to temperature. Then I bring it up to 1200 degrees and the cylinder starts to spread open if all goes well. I don't have to touch it. It just naturally wants to unfold. And then the reason that I put the pattern on the inside, this is super important, because if the pattern was on the outside and you opened it up, it would just flatten everything. You would no longer have like the dimension and texture that you can keep if the pattern is on the inside. I know it's kind of technical, but I just wanted to explain that a little bit. And here's a detail of one of the pieces. And I just love the graphics on this. And you can see like there's like incredible depth. And that happens because the graphics are on the inside of that panel. And when you open it, it just keeps the integrity. And on the right is one of the dresses that Ray Kawakubo designed. And so Ray Kawakubo is the founder of one of my favorite labels, and that's Comme des Garçons. And so which means of the boys. And so I kind of played off of that in naming this panel installation called Comme les filles, which means of the girls. And you can see this pattern. It's like, I'm not trying to copy it. I'm just getting inspiration from it. And I just loved this dress and loved the graphics in it. And there's like 3 panels that are inspired by this dress in the whole installation. Oh, who are those girls? So I wanted to put this picture in because it's 3 of the greats of glass: Karen Willenbrink on the left, Laura Donifer, who might be here with the Mighty Dave, and Kate Rhodes. And it's just kind of a fun picture of my friends enjoying my work, which is really, really, really lovely. Okay. Here we are.
Before we proceed to Nature and Wonders, how are we doing, Demetra? Are there any questions?
Yeah, we do have a couple questions. Nancy had talked in the beginning about tapping into her inner child and the playfulness of the work. And someone was asking if there were any pieces that took direct inspiration from troll dolls because they collected them as a child.
Oh, that's so funny. Well, I think that the Winkles kind of have that. Like, I remember I have a troll doll or 2, and I remember always like twisting the top of their hair and making this like pointy thing. I have a thing with points. So yes, I would say that the troll dolls definitely come into play.
All right.
And there are 2 troll dolls in the wallpaper.
Oh, great. Okay.
Yeah.
We'll do that a little bit later.
Mhm.
We have also a question from Ted Sawyer. He says, is the Prince connection to Nikita Paloma the color, the musical motion of the pattern, and a reference to both Darling Nikki and When Doves Cry?
Yes. Nailed it. That's exactly it. Yeah. Couldn't have said it better myself.
All right. And one last question from Judith. Nancy, can you describe your process for developing the ideas that drive what work you create? You describe how you create the work, and I wonder about the reasons for what you explore. I know you've talked about that a bit already with regard to fashion and patterns and also your childhood inspiration, but anything you'd like to expand upon before we move to the next section?
I think that I am inspired by everything. I think that everything I see and just the day to day. And I think I'm inspired by my memories too of childhood, playing in the snow, playing sports, just my love for nature. And I think I don't understand a lot, like many of us. There's so many things that I don't understand. And so I think being a visual artist, I can create my own kind of interpretations of things that I don't understand.
Yeah. All right, thank you. We can go ahead to the next section now.
Okay.
That was a great segue, Nancy. Thank you for setting up Nature and Wonders. This is the final section of the exhibition, and for me, it's important to close on this section, which is really about the things in the world around us, the universe, nature, that catch Nancy's eye, and that she finds. Um, let's see, that she finds curious, like where she finds wonder and curiosity and awe. And where I get excited for our visitors is to pass along that like energy that Nancy has in finding inspiration everywhere and seeking out that small moment and making it into a big moment that you can spend time in is my favorite part of the show. And so I like closing with this section because Nancy gets to talk about things that she is curious about, but that are hard to articulate in words, like sunsets and string theory. I hope we talk about, Nancy. But what I get excited about is then we also pass that curiosity onto the visitors, and I hope people leave the exhibition curious about things in their own world and looking more closely at the world around them.
Mm. Well said, Katie. Again.
You said it first.
Yeah, but yeah, it's just such a good flow, and you just said a few things that I'm going to touch on too. So in this section, we created this sort of centerpiece with selected sculptures, and some old, some new. Some of them were created at the Museum of Glass. Some of them were created in my studio, and again, I'm thinking about like the large and small, and like thinking about like a raindrop. It's such a small, perfect form, or the vastness of the galaxy, the Milky Way. I think about things like string theory, which I have no idea. Like it's like mind blowing to me, and I like to create works that I don't know, that I'm just inspired by what I think it could be, like this infinite pattern in space. And so we're going to talk a little bit about we could go to the next one. Yeah. So we're going to talk a little bit about this this wall panel, and what I created around the panel. So I wanted to like really expand on the line work in this panel and the vastness that you can kind of feel when you're looking at it. And it's, it's like the panel is like half an inch thick, but it has so much depth to it. And I wanted to like blow that up too with the wall drawing, and like kind of expand it. And I had this idea. Can you go back for a second? I had this idea of like doing this big vinyl on the wall that was just, a section of this panel that was blown up. And I didn't like the way that looked. I didn't like the sample of the vinyl. So I thought about Saul Lewitt. He is one of my hero artists, and he does a lot of wall murals and does some like pencil drawings on the walls. And I thought, oh, like what would Saul do? He would do this in graphite. And so I had this great idea that I was going to like do this mural in graphite, and like just really make this big presentation with it. And 2 weeks before the opening of my show, I actually was in a pretty bad car accident. And so I was like, oh my God, how are we going to do this mural? Because I broke my leg and I could not do it. I was in no shape to be on a scaffolding and do this mural. So Julia, my wife, and my good friend Catherine Gray volunteered to do this for me. So I just really want to thank them for making my dream come true. And I really love the way it came out. It's subtle, like you don't see it until you're coming up on this on this panel. And Katie, go to the next one, please. So the panel is, it's kind of mind-boggling to me still how it works, and how by like taking the pattern and like folding it and manipulating it, you can get such depth and movement in the glass, and it's like so perfect. So like drawing the lines, it's definitely not perfect, but when you look at something like this, like the glass makes it so perfect. It's amazing. And I kind of like that contrast between like the hand of the artist, and then also the hand of the artist in with the glass, collaborating with the glass. It's pretty exciting to me. And I'm just going to talk about a couple of the pieces on the pedestal. So having, I don't know if I haven't really said this, but like having this, this exhibition has been so inspiring to me and wonderful for me to be able to go back and look at some of the older works that I've made. And also it's given me the opportunity to make some really large installations and works for this show. And this piece is called Stellar Net. Again, it kind of goes with the cosmic waves. It's like this black and white, with like this powerful graphic, and you see the difference between it being on a flat panel or being on a sculpture, and the pattern kind of wraps all the way around the piece too. So yeah, this was made for the museum as well. And then I don't even know what to say about this piece, Witching Hour. It's like everything came together in this piece. It's from the color fades to the patterning to the color, the shape. I feel like it's just, when I came out of the annealer, I was just like, oh my God, how did that even happen? And the beauty of like having a show like this is like nobody really saw this piece. I made it during COVID. And these great collectors in Ohio, Doug and Nancy Allen, purchased the piece, and now everybody gets to see it. And it's been quite a hit in the museum, that's for sure. And then Silver Anemone, I always like, I remember this piece, and some really great collectors own this piece as well. And they're all so generous to lend the work back for this show and give other people the opportunity to enjoy the work, and for me to see it again too. So thank you, John and Linda. So here's the last part of Nature and Wonders. And we're going to take a look here at some droplets. And I really respond to this form, and I'm really like having a good time with layering the colors and the patterns and creating new color schemes with, with the glass. And this is called Ghost Oasis. And I'll talk a little bit more about that in a minute. It's very painterly. And it also has a lot of dimension and depth. And now we're going to go back and look at another big wall installation and some spires and orbs on the ground. These panels were also made for this show and made at the Museum of Glass. And I'm going to talk a little bit about my inspiration for those and these spires. We'll take another look across. I think we're going to go in close for the space rocks now, These are brand new pieces, and I'm really pretty wild about them. They have this metallic marini on the surface that really go with these panels. And I'm going to talk about the metallics and that in a minute. We're just going to go over here and look at another black and white piece called Traverse. And this piece I'm playing again with this really hard white and just thinking about bending it and folding it and wrapping it around this sculpture. And it's got a lot of depth to it. So let's talk about the droplet series. So again, I'm taking this like really pure form. And the thing about like when you take a form that is like flawless, you have to make it flawless. Otherwise, it's just not going to look good. So I take a lot of time to make the shape really beautiful. And I'm using these different cane techniques. It looks like they're hollow, but they're not. And I kind of use them like Marini, and I do a lot of layering. These pieces also have this beautiful hand sanded surface, which helps to capture the light. And they're so beautiful when the light is hitting them. It's like they have this inner glow. And the Ghost Oasis. So I made this piece during COVID as well. And it was kind of a breakthrough for me in creating this more painterly effect on the panels. The white little, I call them anemones or ghosts. I have like a handful of them ready to go. They're like little bits of glass that are this big. And I have my assistant come and heat them, and I lay them down on a clear bubble. And I make this composition of layers, and then I take that once I've melted that all in, and I stuff it into, just like the way I showed you how I make the panels, I stuff it into a midnight blue cup. And so I really don't know what it's going to look like when it comes out, but I kind of have a plan. But they always like really come to life, these little ghosts. And yeah, they're really quite powerful when you see them in the gallery too. So I wanted to throw this picture in so you can see the scale of these panels. They're quite big. And again, like having the Museum of Glass team and my own team, I've got Dave Walters and Jen Ellick and Ben Cobb, and Sarah Gilbert, and just the whole I can't name everybody, but the whole team. I'm just so grateful to have them working with me on these panels. And with these, I'm like really thinking about the alchemy of glass. And I'm so excited about this direction because I'm using this, it's like a reducing color. So the color is what reacts to the environment. So it's a oxygen heavy environment that causes the color to reduce. And by reducing, I mean it turns it silvery and metallic looking. So I've always like thought about, I've seen like some frit that's had like this reduction, but I've never really known what to do with it. And so I feel like I'm using these techniques that I know, like Kane and Marini, but I'm using them in a completely different way, because you have to, in order for these colors to reduce, they have to be on the surface of the glass. And normally, like, we gather over the glass over the color to kind of protect it. And with these, I'm keeping the raw color on the surface of the glass. And it's the chemistry of the colors that are reacting with the atmosphere that are making them reduce. So it's a bit of magic, and it's a bit of like, I'm always like surprised and just really happy with how they came out. It's hard to see from this, like the colors in them, but here we can see like one of the panels up close, and you can see it's like this like metallic silver, just patterning. And it's amazing how not only did the color change in the hot shop with the oxygen, but also in the environment that they live in. So if you're, if it's in your home and you have like a white wall opposite it, it will pick up, it becomes more silvery in color. If there's a dark wall or no wall, then it gets a little bit more gold in color. It's really pretty amazing. And then I think this is the last one. Yeah. Yeah. I'm going to end with the spires. Here I'm playing with different color fades. The one on the left is like a fade from lime green to turquoise. And then the one on the right is a pink to yellow. And you can see like also these have this hand sanded surface where they just really capture the light. It's like a vessel for light.
And
Okay.
I know Nancy had a few minutes to talk about process, but there's a really amazing YouTube video that Nancy created on how she makes her work and the panels. It's called Nancy Callan Vision and Process. So I will drop the link, put the link in the chat here once we're exiting our PowerPoint. And before we take more questions, Demetra, I just wanted to go ahead and thank all of you to have Art Alliance for Contemporary Glass sponsor the exhibition, and to see so many of the names on our sponsor wall here thank you so much on behalf of the museum for all of your support of the show. And thank you, Nancy, as always.
Oh, thank you, Katie, as always.
And we're in the middle. There is a beautiful exhibition catalog that accompanies the show. I'll put the link in the chat. There it is. We are getting ready to celebrate Nancy and her accomplishments here at the museum on March 8th. We would love to see you if you happen to be in the Pacific Northwest. I left my email here on this slide, or Demetra can put us in touch, and we can make sure that you're part of those celebrations. And the exhibition is open here through Labor Day. So there's lots of time. We're glad Nancy's back up and running. She'll be in the hot shop making new work and thinking about what's coming next here at the beginning of March, and then a couple times throughout the summer.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, please join us for the opening celebration. It's going to be fun. It actually lands on International Women's Day.
Oh, no way.
Cool. Yeah. Yeah.
How thoughtful of us.
I know.
All right. Well, thank you
so
all
much from our share.
Katie and Nancy, it's been such a pleasure to have you with us today. Nancy, your work is just, I mean, from the playful spirit that you bring to some of the works to just the exquisite pattern work and artistry, you really are such an inspiration to the art community and to women in glass in particular. And we're just so grateful to have you on the program and to be able to experience so much of your work together in an exhibition like this. We do have some more questions from the audience. What I'd like to do is just go ahead and stop the recording so people can unmute themselves and talk to you directly. Before I do that, I also want to thank Anne and John Oppenheimer again for sponsoring this program. So wonderful to have you with us, and hopefully in the chat after, maybe you're willing to share a few of your stories and memories with Nancy. All right, thanks again. I'll stop the recording now.